Okay, Madam Chair, you may want to wait 20 to 30 seconds and then you can start the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Glad you figured that out, Ruben.
All right, we're about to start. So you're in, Mike.
Okay, I'll get started. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. Welcome to the Monday, February 22nd, 2021 City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance this evening, please note that Planning Commission meetings are now being held using the Zoom webinar format. So you will see that planning commissioners and staff are panelists. Please note that there are several ways to submit comments during this meeting. You may raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. Members of the public who are participating in the Zoom webinar by phone can dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit your comments using chat in Zoom by clicking on the chat button located at the bottom of your screen. Staff will then read the comments at the appropriate time. Please be aware that chats will be seen by all of the panelists, which include planning commissioners and staff, and are not anonymous. Lastly, you may send your comments by email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails submitted during the meeting, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the emailed comment should be commensurate with the 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. If you are an applicant or an applicant's representative, I will ask you to raise your hand when your agenda item is up for discussion so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. We also ask that you turn on your video at that time so we can have more clear communication, simulating the experience we would ordinarily have in person. This meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website after the meeting. Currently, there are 33 members in attendance at tonight's meeting. We will now move on to agenda item number 2, roll call. The record should note that 6 members of our commissioners are present this evening. Note that Commissioner Sargent is absent. Agenda item number 3, approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of meeting minutes to review and approve this evening from the January 11th and January 25th regular Planning Commission meetings. The January 11th version is a revised set of minutes. Are there any comments, changes, or discussions regarding the minutes to approve? Vice Chair Taronis.
Madam Chair, I just want to note that I'm going to abstain from voting on the meeting minutes for January 25th, 2021. I was not present at that meeting.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Okay. With that being the case, I will separate the motion to approve the minutes into 2 separate motions. First, I'd like to make a motion to approve the January 11th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by myself, Commissioner Say, seconded by Vice Chair Taronis. Are there any comments or discussion on the motion?
I would like to make a note that I need to abstain from this one because I also was absent on that January 11th.
Okay. So if there isn't any further discussion, we will have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Vice Chair Toronis,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 5-0-1-1. Wait, I believe Commissioner Toronis is abstaining from the January 25th meeting, correct? Okay. So the motion passes 5-0-1-1. Now moving on to the second set of meeting minutes, the January 25th meeting minutes. Is there any, I'd like to make a motion to approve those minutes. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by myself, Commissioner Say, seconded by Commissioner Camarado. Is there any discussion on this motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
and Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 5-0-1-1. Moving on to agenda item number 4, approval of agenda. Other than our item 8C 1151 Rosedale Avenue, which has been postponed to a future meeting, are there any other changes to tonight's agenda?
There are no changes from staff.
Thank you. And do we have any recusals?
I will be recusing from item 9A since I have a financial interest in this property.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5, public comments, non-agenda items. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future Planning Commission agenda may do so during this public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act, which is the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. I may adjust the time depending on the number of anticipated speakers. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on an item that is not on our agenda this evening? Do we have any chats or
Madam Chair, there are no chats and no emails submitted.
no raised hands? Okay. We'll move on then to agenda item number 6, study items. Agenda item 6A 220 California Drive. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we also ask that you turn on your video at this time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for a conditional use permit. Yes, this is an application for a conditional use permit to allow an office use on the ground floor of an existing commercial building at 220 California Drive, zoned CAR. The commercial application notes that there will be no visitors or customers at the site. At opening, the applicant anticipates 3 full-time employees on weekdays and weekends. In 2 years, the applicant anticipates the number of employees to increase to 5 per day on weekdays and weekends. This project also includes improvements to the front and rear facades of the building. However, these facade improvements are exempt from commercial design review because the front and rear building frontages measure less than 25 feet in length. The existing building is built to property line, and therefore there are no parking spaces on the subject property. With the proposed project, the mezzanine level would be reduced to 520 square feet and would be used as office, in addition to the proposed office area on the ground floor, which measures 1,700 square feet. The rear of the building would be used for storage. Based on the previous and proposed uses, there is no intensification of use that would require any additional on-site parking. This concludes the summary of the staff report. If you have any questions for staff, I can take those now. Otherwise, the applicant is here.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Vice Chair Taronis?
This is kind of for staff, but maybe for the applicant. But if we could we get the applicant to revise the conditional use permit application to address the actual use itself, meaning, the tenant, or at least in general, the office use? Because right now, the way that the application reads, it says facade and interior improvements only are being made, no improvements being made that would be detrimental or injurious to the property. So it sort of speaks to the construction that's proposed, but not the actual use as is asked in the application. So I just wanted to plant that seed with staff, and I'll ask the applicant about that as well.
Great. Okay. Duly noted, and we'll have staff work with the applicant as well. But the applicant can provide further clarification on that.
Thank you.
All right, seeing that there are no other questions, I'm going to open the public hearing. Will the applicant please come forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding your project?
Hi, my name is Sylvia Kuhl. I'm partner at Standard Architecture. I'm the applicant's representative, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And we will change our application language as just requested.
Thank
And
you.
yeah.
I'm sorry, was there something else you want to say?
No, nothing. I have. It was a very complete description of the project, so we don't have anything to add.
All right. So questions for the applicant, Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, thank you. So in regards to the application, is there a tenant that's been identified yet for the space?
I believe that the landlord would like to be the tenant, rent it to themselves, to their own company.
And what type of business is that?
It's a developer. It's a commercial and multifamily residential development company.
Okay.
For affordable housing.
Okay. So there's a statement that there won't be any customers, and that there would be about 3 staff members, but the build out looks to be a little bit more extensive than that. Can you just understand? Yeah, I'm asking the questions because I don't have necessarily an issue with an office use per se, but I'm just trying to understand whether or not there would be any impacts, for this use that might be detrimental to other properties. So in trying to understand, what the nature of the use would be, that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm. My understanding is that there's going to be 2 principals working, and really just 2 or 3 project manager from housing projects which are under construction might be joining them there as well if they're not at the actual construction site. So that's our understanding. I think it's a business which is, I guess, very, pretty extensive and busy and involved, and I think there was a need to have better offices, just basically to serve, to basically function out of that space, not to have like. It's not meant to have a lot of extra staff or visitors. It's basically there to have the space to work on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you could just work with the owners and just clarify in the conditional use permit, a little bit more details on the use, and I think there's likely a good argument to be made, for why this wouldn't be detrimental based on other uses in the vicinity and that sort of thing. But if you could just detail that a little bit more, I think that would be helpful and allow us to move forward to potential approval next time.
Mm-hmm. You can also, I think, for example, there's only 3 offices with like 4 other desks in there. Is that what you're looking for? Basically, that we're describing that? That
can
is,
clarify, I'm not trying to catch anybody at anything. I want to find a path towards making this work.
right.
So if they can just clarify, it seems a little odd to say that there would be a maximum of 3 people at any given time. Just tell us what a real maximum is going to be.
My understanding is the 2 owners plus 3 project managers.
Okay.
If I read this correctly, that's what I read.
Okay, so if we could just clarify that when this comes back the next time for action, I think that would be helpful.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Commissioners? All right, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Please raise your hand, send a chat, or a quick email.
Madam Chair, I don't see any chats and I don't see any emails. I did see a raised hand just a minute ago, but it looks like they put their hand back down again.
All right. With that, then I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, I mean, I see the desire for the property owner that he'd want to do this. However, I'm having a little bit of trouble with it because it is a retail area, and the building next door that's being constructed at 250 California was required to have retail on the ground floor. In my opinion, in an attempt to get more retail on California Drive and make it more pedestrian friendly. Office space is not doing well right now, nor is retail space. So, I mean, I guess you can make an argument that way. I'm wondering if the conditional use permit would go solely with the tenant, or if this would be something that would go with the building in perpetuity, and then we would always have an office space there when hopefully the retail time comes back. So I'm a little bit on the fence on this one. I don't know.
Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, I get where Commissioner Gall is coming from. That's the reason I was asking for a little bit of clarification on what the type of use would be. But I guess I kind of landed on where Commissioner Gall, what he hinted at partially in that. I think that that's going to be a very difficult place for retail to operate, especially with the changing face of retail that we're seeing. It doesn't have any sort of other anchors, like other retail on Burlingame Avenue. So I think rather than having a dead storefront that's hard for a retail operator to make work, I'd like to see something there. If the building owner is the one that's going to occupy it, we have a better chance, as opposed to them trying to find an office tenant, better chance of this working. That's why I'm hoping that they could be forthcoming and just give us the details of what their operation would be, and get that into the conditional use permit. For me, I have a better chance at supporting it that way.
Commissioner Schmidt?
I would agree. And if we could tie this to them as a tenant or user for that duration, and then when they decide that they're no longer going to use it and they're going to lease it to somebody else, then they could reapply for that, for that use again, or it could revert back to retail as it's appropriately zoned. So I think I could support that as a single use, but not a forever change.
Through the chair, staff will look into that. My understanding is that variances and conditional use permits are run with the land, but we can certainly look into that. And when this comes back for action, we can provide you with further clarification on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Camerado?
I agree with Commissioner Schmidt and Commissioner Taronis, so I'd love to hear what staff has to say.
All right, so staff's going to look into that for our next an action. So if there are no other questions or comments, I'll make a motion that we bring this project back on the regular action calendar.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, who seconded that? Loftus? Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by myself, Commissioner Say, seconded by Commissioner Loftus. Is there any discussion on the motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Commissioner Loftus, you are muted.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Vice Chair Taronis,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-0-1. Moving on to agenda item number 7, consent calendar. We have no consent calendar items for this evening, so we will move on to agenda item 8, regular action items. The first item is 8A, 1037 Cortez Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. And if possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. For any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Vice Chair Taronis?
Chair, no ex parte communications, but I just wanted to note that I was not present for the study meeting, but I was able to watch the video and read the minutes from that meeting.
Thank you. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this application is for design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage at 1037 Cortez Avenue, zoned R1. The applicant proposes to build a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage. The total proposed floor area is 3,168 square feet, where 3,314 square feet is the maximum allowed. At the Planning Commission Design Review Study meeting on January 25th, the Commission had several suggestions regarding this project. The applicant submitted a response letter and revised plans, date stamped February 10th, 2021, to address the Commission's questions and comments. With regard to the street trees, a certified arborist report was prepared by Maine Tree Company. The report indicates the easterly magnolia tree is stressed, declining in health, and should therefore be removed. The city's arborist will review the arborist report and provide requirements for a replacement tree at the time of building permit application. Suggested findings for design review are found on page 3 of your staff report, and I'd be happy to take questions of staff if you have any at this moment.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding your project?
Hi, ready to, I'm Elaine Lee. I'm the project architect, and we, in the interim, since our last meeting, met and discussed windows with one of the adjacent neighbors, and we worked closely to describe to her where our proposed windows would be relative to her windows, and she had no objections to our design. She also had sent us an email kindly immediately after the last meeting, where she voiced support actually for also the design of the house. And we have made some modifications in response to the commissioner's comments at the study meeting. One prompted us to get the arborist report, and so we have proposed to remove one of the magnolia trees and straighten out the driveway, so that the remaining magnolia tree will have more space to breathe a little bit, and that's the healthier of the 2 street trees. And so for a replacement tree, we would locate a tree over towards the right corner of the lot, where there's space for another street tree. we also investigated the possibility of making the driveway side entrance a little bit more accommodating. We made some minor adjustments, but after giving it some thought, decided that the trade-offs of making any more significant plan adjustments were going to compromise more than the benefits would offer. And then finally, on the front elevation, we made some subtle modifications to improve or to doll up the facade a little bit more. Ruben, I think the commissioners have seen it, but we submitted some sample images and a rendering. Was everybody able to see that document?
Yes, we have it in our packet, I believe, in black and white. I don't know if the rendering is available in color for a little bit better clarity.
I can look that up for you and see if I can bring it up on the screen. But you can continue with your conversation while I look that up.
And if you are having trouble locating it, I can email it to you directly in color. So there in that packet, there were both some sample details or sample images of other either building elements or other projects that convey the style that we were trying to emulate. And so the goal here was to make a house, to build a house in a Tudor style, but something that had more modern flair. So something that still complemented the neighborhood and, the common Tudor style in the Easton Addition. And so, yeah, there we go. And so this illustrates on the left-hand side, there's the two images of a couple of modern Tudor houses. We've added some additional detailing at the gable ends, and there's also an image of a steel entry door that would be similar to the style of door that we would hope to install at this project. And then the next page of that document, or hopefully next, yeah, there is the rendering of our project in color. And if any commissioners have any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, Elaine, in your comments about the street trees, you mentioned an additional or a new street tree towards the right-hand side. Is that shown on the landscape plan yet or not yet? Pending?
Not yet.
So is that pending city arborist review and
Yes.
coordination as to what and where? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Please raise your hand, send a chat, or a quick email.
Madam Chair, we have not received any emails or chats.
All right. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Any comments, commissioners? Oh, I see Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, I like the project the last time it was here, and I think that the minor changes improve the look of the facade and give it a little bit more character. And I can appreciate the need to remove the one tree. As I remember being out there, that would have negatively impacted their ability to do a driveway without killing one or both of those trees anyway. So I'm fine with that. So I can support the project, and I think it'll be a good looking project. So thank you.
Commissioner Loftus?
I agree, absolutely. I liked the project a lot at the last meeting. There's something refreshing about the asymmetry. It's not doesn't feel like a cookie cutter house like some houses that we see these days. And I move that we approve the project.
Commissioner Camerado?
I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think the project is a great project, and I would second that motion.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Loftus, seconded by Commissioner Camerado. Is there any discussion on the motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado.
Aye.
Commissioner Gall.
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus.
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid.
Aye.
Vice Chair Taronis.
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action is final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Moving on to agenda item 8B, 120 Dwight Road. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please now raise your hand so we may identify you and have you prepared to speak at the appropriate time. And if possible, please turn on your video at that time as well. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
This is an application for design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage at 120 Dwight Road, zoned R1. The proposed house and detached garage will have a total floor area of 3,245 square feet, where 3,348 square feet is the maximum allowed. At the Planning Commission Design Review Study meeting on November 23rd, 2020, the Commission recommended changes to the project. The applicant submitted revised plans, date stamped February 9th, 2021, to address the Commission's comments. Changes to the proposed project include changing the roofing material from standing seam metal roof to a composition shingle roof, revising the design of the chimneys, articulating the east elevation, reducing the floor area by 102 square feet, and reducing the overall building height by 1 feet 1 inches. Suggested findings for design review are found on page 3 of the staff report. This concludes my summary of the project. If you have any questions for staff, I can take those now. Otherwise, the applicant is here.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding your project?
Hi, everyone. My name's Natalie, and I'm the lead designer at Highland Design. A couple other things that we, in addition to what Ruben had mentioned, a couple other things we did was we did shrink the garage in both directions, giving a 1 foot rear and 1 foot right side setback. There was a lot of talk about giving relief off of the fence and property line to the garage. So we did that. A couple minor things, we took the corner boards off, specified a 6-inch horizontal wood siding tongue and groove, so not like a shiplap. There's 3 fireplaces on the left elevation, and we decided to pop 2 of those chimneys through and made those in stone. And there's just a lot of open discussion. After the meeting, there was a lot of open discussion with my client about softening the house. So we took away the black, we took away the metal roof. We added the stone. We're going to do a more warm colored white. And what else? Oh, we pulled the upper right floor in 18 inches to articulate the right side. But in addition to that, we wrapped the front porch around, but also steepened the pitch of the lower roof to get as much, just a little bit more of some material in between the upper and lower floor. The right side elevation still looked a little plain, so I added an upper window in the front bedroom. And then I know it's hard to tell, but there is a door off of the driveway, and I'm planning on paneling and wainscoting that opening there. And then there'll also be a gate that breaks up that elevation as well. We reduced the stair window, and I think that's about it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Loftus?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway so we can get it clarified. The roof plan calls for metal roof, but I've just heard you say that you changed the roofing material, and the other drawings show that it's been changed to composition.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It is all composition now.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. My real question though is do you intend to have exterior lighting at the front facade? I don't see any. I see some at the garage and I see some at the back of the house, but I see no indication that there are light fixtures mounted at the front.
We have not done the lighting yet. I think my drafts person might have plopped them in. I'm not sure if that's a requirement from planning, if planning asked us to do that.
The reason that I asked the question is simply the fact that they're shown on the other facades, and I wanted to make a point that I make a lot now these days, which is make sure, please, that the lighting, the exterior lighting, meets the lighting regulations, municipal lighting regulations, which prohibit the light leaving, prohibit the direct light leaving the property. We have a lot of bright lights around town. That stuff just sort of happens, and I wanted to see what you were thinking on the front, or whether there were down lights in the or something. But if you could just make sure that that the light fixtures meet the regulations, that'd be great.
Okay. I don't think there's a lot of space for sconces, so I'm pretty sure we'll end up doing a can light in the ceiling at the covered porch.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie?
Yes.
So I don't know, this might be a drafting error, because I know you have set the garage 1 foot in from the property line, but in your front elevation, it's still reflected as up against the property line, the right side of the garage. So wanted to make sure that you notice that and
thank you.
Address that. It's probably
we'll
just
fix that for sure. Thank you.
And then I think you mentioned earlier something about the side, that right side recessed doorway into the house. So what we're looking at in that elevation is some wall paneling. Is that what you're saying? That's not the door that's showing there.
Correct.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, so it is a recess. Thank you. And I want to also thank you for the rendering, as I think it helps to convey your design details more clearly. Are there any other questions for the applicant, commissioners? Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Please raise your hand or send a chat.
Madam Chair, I don't see any emails, nor do I see any chats coming in.
Okay, with that, thank you. I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Loftus?
I'd just like to say I like the changes a lot. I like the softened house as you described it. I think the rendering helps to convey that softness. I really like all the changes, and I appreciate your response to our comments. I think it's a really nice house, actually.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Loftus. I think the changes are nice, nice change. I like the idea of having the corner boards removed and going with the nicer siding. I think that that's going to soften that up quite a bit as well. I appreciate the rendering. It does speak well to your project, and it really helps us quite a bit, more so than the elevations. So I think that I commend you for getting that done and making it work. I can fully see supporting this project. And if nobody else is going to raise their hand, then I'll make a motion that we approve this project.
Okay. Commissioner Camerado?
I would second that motion.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Schmidt, seconded by Commissioner Camerado. Is there any discussion on the motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Vice Chair Taronis,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Moving on to agenda item 8C, 1151 Rosedale Avenue. That's been continued to a future meeting. So we will move on to agenda item 8D, 715 to 717 and 719 to 721 Linden Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please now raise your hand so that we may identify you to speak at the appropriate time. And also, as if possible, please turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for condominium permit, variances, and tentative condominium map for the new duplex residential buildings currently under construction at 715 to 717 Linden Avenue and 719 to 721 Linden Avenue. Construction of the two duplex residential structures is nearing completion. The applicant is now requesting approval of a condominium permit for each duplex structure. With this application, there would be 2 condominium units on each lot. The applicant is requesting the following applications, and these applications are required for each site. Condominium permit, variance for required private open spaces encroaching into the front, side, and rear setbacks, variance for providing no common open space, parking variance for providing no guest parking space, and lastly, a recommendation to City Council for the tentative condominium map. The Planning Commission study meeting on February 8th, the Commission had several questions about this application. The applicant submitted a response letter and revised plans, each stamped February 16th, to address your comments. There were several items that you had all asked the applicant to consider. The first was to change the fencing or to add a gate along Carolyn Avenue to make that more of a front entry. And this would be to make a better connection between the project and Carolyn Avenue. So a wood gate and decorative arbor was added for the 2 units along Carolyn Avenue. We had also asked the applicant to coordinate the placement of stepping stones so that access to Carolyn Avenue is equally usable by both units. The stepping stones for the 715 to 717 Linden Avenue project were adjusted so that the path is provided to Carolyn Avenue. However, the stepping stones for the next door project were not able to be adjusted because there's a large existing redwood tree in that area. And lastly, you encourage the applicant to discuss with Public Works Department the possibility of assigning a Carolyn Avenue address for the rear units. So the revised landscape plan does show an address of 717 Linden and 721 Linden to be mounted on the gates of the rear units. However, planning staff did have some initial discussions with Public Works, and they noted because fire and police will be, access will be from Linden Avenue, since that's where the driveways are proposed or placed. The gate should not be labeled or illuminated with an address in order to not cause any confusion for fire and police. So what we're going to do is have the applicant continue those discussions with Public Works to see if any addressing can be placed on those gates. Suggested findings for the condominium permit and the variances are found on page 4 through 6 of your staff report. If you have any questions for staff, I can take those now. Otherwise, the applicant is here.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project?
I think Randy's on mute. Randy, I'm the applicant, James Evans, but.
Okay, how's that?
There you go.
Hear me? Okay. Hey, you got a haircut, James.
I did.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm TRG Architects. James wanted to change this to condominiums from the duplex. Basically, it lives exactly like the duplexes on the street. I'll get into that in a second, but when at the last meeting, I think everybody agreed that the open space being provided is actually better than if you went by the book with the condominium requirements, because the condominium requirements would kind of take into account like large structures with, you know, dozens of units in there. And so this is actually really just like, it's really just a duplex. So at the last meeting, I think, yeah, as I said, I think everyone agreed that the open space was better this way. And then the parking thing was really a guest parking. I kind of forgot like at the last meeting because we started talking about pizza deliveries and stuff. But if you can break the parking down into really 3 components, just general parking requirements for the units. The parking requirements, I know there's a half a car in there, but the parking requirements for the unit, for whether it's a duplex or condominium, are actually exactly the same. And we already met that requirement previously. And then the deliveries, we were talking about pizza deliveries and stuff like that. So we did actually add that gate on the back with the Linden address. And yeah, Public Works said they do not want to change the address to the backside for emergency situations. But we did add that more prominent gate back there, which has the Linden address. So if someone is coming up there, they can see it. But the delivery parking, we actually met the condominium requirement because the planning staff reviewed it and it's right there in the driveway. You can actually see it's called out as delivery. So that's actually there. But in reality, everybody knows you get a pizza delivered, they pull up in front of the street, put on their blinking lights and they run to the door. And the same with Amazon. So it really functions just like any other house. So it really came down to the guest parking because there's a guest parking requirement for 1 car if it's a condo, but not if it's a duplex. And so I don't know why that happens. I think it's because when you add up multiple condominiums, there really is a demand for guest parking because at some point you've got a lot of units and you run out of space. And so there needs to be a place for people to go. But this is a little bit different. I mean, if you map it out, the east side of the street has at least 9 duplex lots. And the west side has at least 3 plus these 2. And so I'm not Yeah, so, but looking at those, we have at least as much parking as they have. And the east side of the street doesn't have the second street frontage. So if you look at the Carolyn side, the 100-foot long for both lots, the 100-foot long street frontage actually accommodates 5 parking spaces, and it's really underutilized. So we just feel like if this lives and breathes like a duplex, and if somebody could buy a condo and then rent it out. I mean, who knows? But it would be like an unnecessary hardship to kill the opportunity of these being sold separately because of a guest parking spot, when it lives exactly like all the duplexes on the street and actually provides more potential parking than most of the properties there. So that's that. I don't know if James has anything to say, but.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we had a purpose of adding the fence on the front in Linden, and I've obviously had some time to sort of ponder that. And I guess I will just kind of throw myself at the mercy of the commissioners. I think that the house would look a lot better without those fences on Linden, but it's not a sticking point for me. It's just more an observation than anything, and something that I thought I'd bring up.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioners, any questions? I have one question. I think for Randy. Looking at the 717 Linden site plan, where you've added the stepping stones, is the final kind of connection between the stepping stones by the arbor and the stepping stones around the side force one to step onto the patio, or that it looks, I believe, like a hardscape patio in front of 717 or behind 717 Linden? Yeah, right in that area. Is that the case?
Well, that doesn't have to be the case. I mean, ideally, people going to that back unit on the Carolyn side would come in there, and that's more sort of their entrance. I don't think a lot of people are going to come into the Linden side from back there. So they kind of live as 2 different houses with 2 different street fronts, but that's certainly not, if we wanted to make that gate more inviting to the front unit, you're right. We could change that around.
Okay.
Or theoretically, we could have the pathway, have stones go in 2 directions if you really wanted to. Yeah. However,
you move the gate further over and have it more.
That's fine too.
That's what I would suggest. Yeah.
That's fine. We're okay with that if you guys want to do that.
Thank you. I just think 717 would appreciate not having everybody traipse across their front porch.
I would agree.
Trample
that's true. But I actually think that people at 717 don't want people traipsing by their property to go visit their friend to 715 either. So I don't really think it's going to work that way, but we get it. Yeah, we can change that.
Great, thank you. Let's see. I don't think commissioners have any other comments. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? Please send a chat or raise your hand.
Madam Chair, I don't see any emails or chats for this project.
All right, thank you. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, thank you. I can make the findings for the variances for the project. I think that there are enough unique conditions, as Randy outlined fairly clearly. The dual frontages on Linden and Carolyn, I think, are a big difference. The fact that this is essentially 2-story duplex units that are going to act and operate just like any other duplex in the neighborhood. These are not multi-story condominiums. And that being the case, the open space areas are going to act exactly like yard areas for those duplex units, because of the fact that each one of those units has a ground floor that opens to those open space areas. So that to me is unique, and therefore that's a non-issue. So it boils down to the guest parking issue as Randy outlined. And for me, the gate opening onto Carolyn is going to address a couple of potentially significant issues. Friends coming over to visit those units at 717 and 721 will know to park, that they can park along Carolyn and go through the gate and get to their friend's unit. That will take pressure off of Linden. So I very much appreciate those added gates to make that essentially an entry. Pizza delivery people, other people that get familiar with these addresses, they'll figure out that same thing. And again, it will take pressure off of Linden Avenue and therefore truly make this operate with the two frontages that are the specifically unique and extraordinary conditions for this property. So I can make the findings for the variances and can support the applications for the condominium permit and the tentative condominium map.
Commissioner Camerado?
I have the same thing as Commissioner Toronis. I think this is a great project. I think they've done some nice changes, and I can make the findings as the comments in the staff report.
Commissioner Loftus?
I, with my two fellow commissioners who have spoken, and move that we approve the project.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Loftus, seconded by Vice Chair Toronis. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Vice Chair Toronis,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-0-1. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $1,075, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. Moving on to agenda item 8E, 1868 to 1870 Ogden Drive. If you are the applicant and or the applicant's representative, please now raise your hand so we can identify you to speak at the appropriate time. And also please turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we have a staff report, please?
Yes. Just give me 1 second. I had Senior Planner Catherine was going to present this project, but she had to step out for a second, so I will do my best to summarize the project for you. So this is an application review and recommendation to the City Council on an application for design review, conditional use permit for tandem parking, and condominium permit on a new 120-unit, 6-story condominium building, and environmental impact report, including statement of overriding considerations. The site totals 30,138 square feet and is currently occupied by a 1-story office building. The Millbrae Caltrain station is approximately 0.45 miles east of the project, and the Caltrain multimodal station is approximately 0.6 miles from the project site. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing building, as was earlier noted. 6 units, or 5% of the project, would be below market rate units for low-income households, and that's households that do not exceed 80% of the average median income. The overall height of the building would be approximately 69 feet to the top of the parapet, and 76 feet to the top of the elevator penthouse. The project would provide a total of 150 parking spaces on site located in 2 levels of parking. 66 of the 150 spaces would be provided in tandem configuration. The MB/MU zoning district includes tiered development standards requiring community benefits to be included in projects in order to achieve the highest residential densities and building heights. The applicant has elected to develop consistent with Tier 3 standards. And those are included in your staff report. Let's see, on November 12th of 2019, the commission had a design review study meeting for the project. And at that meeting, you provided comments on the proposed project. The applicant revised the plans in response to your comments and submitted them on the plan date stamped February 11th, 2021. The applicant also submitted a response letter dated February 19th to summarize those changes to the project. The meeting on November 12th also served as an environmental scoping meeting to identify potential environmental issues with the project. At this meeting, it was initially assumed that environmental review would be a Class 32 infill exemption. However, during the preparation of the initial study for the project, it was discovered that the existing building was found to be significant under the California Register of Historical Resources Criterion 1, which is events. And that was for its association with the United Farm Workers labor activism in the 1960s and 70s, and their decade-long struggle against the Teamsters. The proposed project includes 6 new crepe myrtle trees along Ogden Drive. And the landscape plan also shows all of the proposed landscaping that's proposed on site. On November 23rd, the draft EIR for the proposed development was released for public review. The public comment period ended on January 11th, 2021. Planning Commission held a public hearing to obtain comments on the draft EIR on December 14th, and those minutes are also included and attached to the staff report. The final EIR for the project, which consists of the responses to the comments received during the comment period and also revisions to the text of the draft EIR, were published on February 12th. There was one area that the project was found to have significant unavoidable impact upon the cultural resources due to the events that have taken place on site and as detailed in your staff report. Because the project involves the demolition of the building, it is considered to be a significant unavoidable environmental impact that triggers the need for an EIR. The draft EIR does include mitigation measures that would require documentation and interpretation regarding the significance of the building, which would be provided to the public by accessible repositories in the public plaza in front of the building. Because there are significant and unavoidable impacts, the City Council is the final decision-making body to act on the statement of overriding considerations. Planning Commission action is a recommendation on both the CEQA action and the project entitlements upon which the CEQA approval is predicated upon. So your action this evening will be in the form of a recommendation to City Council. The CEQA findings, statement of overriding considerations are found on pages 11 and 12 of your staff report. Suggested findings for other entitlements, including design review and conditional use permit, are found on page 13 and 14 of your staff report. At this time, I'd be happy to take questions from staff. If not, I know the applicant has a brief presentation as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project?
Sure. Hello, my name is Franco Zaragoza, and I am a partner with Levy Design Partners. And I really just wanted to quickly touch on the minor changes that we made in response to some of the comments we heard during the study meeting. Primarily, we made some revisions at the parking area. There were tandem spaces originally designed that were under the number of units. So we updated the layout to incorporate individually accessed parking spaces up to 120 spaces. So keeping the same numbers current, we just made some arrangements down in the lower level, which allowed us to maintain the parking count with just some minor tweaks at the mechanical areas. We also worked with our landscape architect to incorporate a location for the historical marker that would be finalized and collaborated with our team working with the historical data, which is going to be located at the front of our plaza. And at the ground floor plan, we made some minor tweaks with some additional glazing into the garage directly adjacent to the 3-tier planter. We also worked with our landscape architect a bit to kind of zone in on those species to make sure that they're fuller and that they'll spill into one another to create more of a planted wall. And we, during this time, we kind of stepped back and took some time to explore the interior designs. We also looked at the interior corridors, making some minor tweaks, the articulation of the entrances into the units, and also looked at upsizing some windows at the edges of our corridors for more natural light. We looked at some of the bedroom window sizes at the rear and sides of the building, primarily at the areas that are adjacent to private decks, and we try to maximize some areas as much as possible. And then lastly, in the courtyard, we made a slight design change where we flipped a unit type. Basically, we did this to allow our exterior deck orientation to face the southern edge, offering more natural light into the unit. Minor tweaks, again, the unit layouts stayed the same. It was mostly just the open space, and the landscape changes incorporated our flip. So these were ultimately to enhance the experience and livability of the areas. So I just wanted to make that note, and at this time I'm available to take questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand or submit a chat.
Madam Chair, I don't see any chats nor any emails and no hands raised.
Okay, then with that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, overall, I think the project is approvable and should move forward. I like what we're seeing. I think it's going to be a good project for Burlingame. I do have a concern. I know that the city has said that their water management plan should allow enough water for this project and for others coming up. But I still, that's based on some assumptions, and it's not based on the plan that's required to be done every 5 years and should have been done last year. So I'm okay with what they're assuming at this point, but I really think we need to see that water management plan completed and brought forward, especially with the amount of housing that we're putting in at the moment.
Any other comments, commissioners? Vice Chair Taronis?
I agree with Commissioner Gall. I think it's a good project. I can make the findings as identified in the staff report, in particular, the overriding consideration the greater community benefit that we're going to get from this housing project versus the office building that is there now. I made the statements previously in regards to the potentially historic significance of the structure. I still believe that the significance does not necessarily lie in the bricks and the mortar of that building. So again, I can make the findings as identified. In looking at the comments that were made on the final EIR, I agree with the report from ICF identifying that there's no further revision or study that needs to be taken based on the questions and comments that were made on the EIR. So I think that the project should move forward. I'm sorry. For the record, I also like to just say that I appreciate the revisions that were made, particularly to the parking area. I think it is a really important issue, whether it's with stackers or with tandem parking, but to make sure that there's clear and easy access for every unit to at least one clear and identifiable parking space. I think that's important for these projects to work as they move forward with the creative parking solutions that we're seeing.
So I agree with my fellow commissioners, and I also want to reiterate the appreciation for the change in the parking to accommodate all the units. So that's very much appreciated, in addition to the fact that you provided additional parking then is required as well. So I will make a move that we make a recommendation for this project to move on to the City Council.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by myself, Commissioner Say, seconded by Vice Chair Taronis. Is there any discussion on this motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Vice Chair Taronis,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-0-1. We now move on to agenda item 9, design review study items. The first item is 9A 1417 Cortez Avenue. Commissioner Camarado will be recusing from this item for financial reasons. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand now so that we may identify you and prepare you to speak at the right time. And if possible, please also have your video on during that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project?
Madam Chair.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was able to visit the project site, but just a minor comment. The photo on the cover of the staff report is for the house next door. I just had a hard time finding the project site. Just kidding, but maybe the staff report.
Just keeping you on your toes. Want to make sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I walked in the wrong backyard and everything.
All right, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Sure, and
Yes,
Madam Chair
thank you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, we will have Senior Planner Catherine Keelan present the next 2 projects. This is our way of just rotating staff through as we used to do the good old days before Zoom. So Catherine, go ahead.
Thank you, Ruben. Good evening, Chair Say and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Catherine Keelan with Burlingame Planning Division. The project before you this evening for 1417 Cortez Avenue is an application for design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing house to build a new 2-story house. There is an existing 2-story detached structure on the site that would be retained and updated. The proposed floor area for the garage and a new house would be 3,080 square feet, or 3,142 square feet is the maximum allowed. The existing detached garage provides 1 code-complying covered space and 1 uncovered space required for the proposed 4-bedroom house. Staff does note that this application includes a detached accessory dwelling unit, and per state law, accessory dwelling units are reviewed administratively only. The site contains an existing two-story accessory dwelling unit that was built on the property prior to 1954 when two-story accessory units were prohibited by the code. This will be retained as part of this project. It will be modified, but be brought into compliance with building code requirements. So that does mean that some egress windows would be added at the front of the structure, and some existing windows under the second-story gable on the left side would be removed. Staff would also note that under our accessory dwelling unit regulations, that accessory dwelling units that are detached and less than 850 square feet are exempt from our lot coverage and floor area calculations in the R1 zone. So the proposed unit is the existing unit to be retained and restored is 533 square feet, which is not counted in the floor area and lot coverage for the property. All other zoning requirements are met. Your staff report does contain the design review criteria for reference, and that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? All right, with that, I will open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding this project?
Hi, everyone. James Chu from Chu Design Associates. I'm actually sitting down, not stepping forward. But anyway, this is pretty straightforward project. And it's design review, so we like to hear your comments. Really have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, hi, James. I have one question. I know we're not supposed to go over the ADU, but my concern is the ceiling height in the second floor over the garage. You got to the top of the ridge from the floor is 7'5", and your section shows it at 6'9" to the highest point at the peak. But if I'm not mistaken, the CRC says 7 feet is the lowest you can go in residential.
Well, that's existing condition. So,
okay. Well, no, I mean, again, it's the ADU, so we don't have any say that. It's just something you might want to look at.
Okay.
My other question is on your landscape plan. It seems like there's a lot of paving in the backyard. I mean, I get it that you got to drive in and that there's an ADU back there, so you want to have some pathway, but it just seems like it's going to be all paving. You got a little bit of landscaping over on the side, and potentially a little bit in front of the ADU, it looks like.
So maybe we can add some landscaping between the driveway paver and the
or
stone
something
patio.
back there.
Right.
It just seems like it's going to be kind of barren and hard.
Okay, I agree.
Anyways,
We'll look into it.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, thank you, James. I had the same question as Commissioner Gall in regards to the hardscape. Am I correct in reading the plans that the driveway is 10 feet? Right?
Correct.
Right. So, I mean, you might be able to introduce a little bit of a planting strip along that driveway. I don't know, just to soften that edge, but I agree, excuse me, I agree if there's a way to look at all of that hardscape and add a tree, add some planting areas, I think that would help.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand or submit a chat.
Madam Chair, I don't see any emails nor any chats nor raised hands.
All right then. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Loftus.
Well, I suspect everybody can imagine what I'm about to say, so I'm going to say it anyway. There are two things that I'm really uneasy about. One is the standing seam metal roof. I don't think it's a very good material for sort of fitting into the neighborhoods in Burlingame, especially when it becomes very prominent, which I think it does pretty much on the left and right elevations. That's a pretty significant amount of metal roof exposed. It's not as though it disappears. It's slightly too steep and slightly too tall to disappear. And, you know, I don't like it. I think it's a wrong material for compatibility with almost every neighborhood in the city. One thing even if I were to reluctally support that, I cannot support the big stair window 4 feet from the property line. That is a pattern that is repeating over and over and over in the city, and it's a big mistake in my view, because it means that people are walking up and down and looking directly into the neighbors' yards and windows. And sometimes I've heard it said that when it's on a driveway side, that's fine, or if there's a driveway on the other side, but I just don't buy it. I think it's a mistake. So those are my two concerns about the design as it stands.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Yeah, I had the same comment as the other commissioners with regards to the landscape. There is a lot of hardscape back there, and would love to see a little bit softer side to that. But otherwise, I can support the project. Thank you.
Vice Chair Taronis?
Yeah, I will say, I don't agree with Commissioner Loftus on every one of the projects where he's looked closely at the metal roofs, but on this one in particular, I tend to agree. One of the issues, as has been brought up before, is the fact that this is a 7 and 12 roof pitch. So there's going to be a lot of exposure to that metal siding. So it's not like this is a low sloping roof that will disappear. It will have prominence. And particularly in the Eastern Addition area, I think it's be quite an aberration relative to the neighborhood context. So I do have some difficulty with that material, but otherwise, I think that the house is well crafted. It's nicely massed. I don't see other issues. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll make a motion to bring this back on regular action.
I'll second.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Vice Chair Taronis, seconded by Commissioner Schmidt. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Loftus?
Yeah, just to say, I will support bringing it back on regular action, and I'd support it depending on whether changes have been made. But my stance, I think, is pretty clear.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, I just want to circle back around on that roof slope. I think that's what was the only thing that was kind of bothering me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but now that it's been brought up, and maybe if it wasn't all metal roof or something, I don't know, but I do agree that I think on a couple of the elevations, specifically the right side elevation, that metal roof is very prominent, and in the 7 and 12 slope, I think it might be too much.
Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Camarado?
She's recused from this item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt?
Aye.
Vice Chair Taronis?
Aye.
And Chair Say?
Aye. So the motion passes 5-0-1-1. Moving on to agenda item 9B, 251 California Drive. If you are the applicant and or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so we may be prepared to identify you and be prepared to speak at the appropriate time. And if possible, please turn on your video at that time. Are there any commissioners, were any commissioners not able to visit the project site? And do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, please note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. This is an application for commercial design review and a conditional use permit for commercial recreation use at 251 California Drive, zoned HMU, Howard Mixed Use. The applicant is proposing to replace an auto retail and repair use with a commercial recreation use that is the Base Camp Fitness, currently located next door at 261 California Drive. The business would be completely relocated to the proposed location at 251. In the Howard Mixed Use District, commercial recreation uses do require approval of a conditional use permit. The tenant space is approximately 4,500 square feet in area. The application does include a request for a commercial design review for exterior changes to the front of the store, which fronts on California Drive and is approximately 45 feet in width, as well as for proposed changes to the exterior of the building, which fronts on Hatch Lane. Staff has provided for you in your staff report findings required for design review as well as for a conditional use permit. Staff does note that the subject property is commercial recreation use on the first floor, which is exempt from off-street parking requirements as it is part of the parking sector in our downtown specific plan. That concludes my presentation. I would like to note, however, that we did receive one letter from the public that I will read into record. It is from Jennifer Pfaff. Dear Planning Commissioners, I noticed 251 California is going to be reviewed again, and remembered it's first reviewed in 2018, long before the most recent review in May of 2019. A storefront redesign was submitted in 2018. At that time, it was noted that the design omitted the original checkered pattern tiles above the storefront. As far as I can recall, at that meeting, the Planning Commission suggested that the tiles would be nice to retain, and they were intact in an example simple storefront embellished of long ago. The design did not come back for review until May of 2019, this time from Randy Grange with TRG Architects. When Randy Grange ended up redesigning the next iteration, he made sure to incorporate the original tiles into the storefront, which you will note in the 2019 plans. I mention this only because it appears that this submission, which I find very attractive, unfortunately calls for removal of the original checkered tiles, which I think would be a shame. I realize that there have canned lights in mind, but wonder if they could be repositioned a few inches while leaving the tiles in place. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Jennifer Pfaff. That was the only comment that was received, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Will the applicant please step forward, state your name, and add anything you would like regarding your project?
Hi, yes, my name is Michael Zweifel. I'm the VP of Construction Design for Base Camp Fitness. The plan is basically to relocate from the adjacent property next door. This property will give us a new, not only a new storefront, but it gives us all one level access throughout. The current space has a balcony and some of the restrooms are in inaccessible areas in the back. So this really gives us a better guest experience for our members.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? Vice Chair Taronis.
Just one simple one. In the application for relocating the business, there's a statement that you anticipate a maximum of 55 customers at any one time, including employees, owners, and customers, et cetera. So how does that compare with the existing operation? Is that the max that you're at now, or would this be expanding a little bit?
Hi, my name is Jesse, with Director of Basecamp Fitness. I think our conditional use permit at 261 is 45 or 48. So this would be a slight capacity increase, as you know, most of our classes have a high utilization.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, so along those same lines, so the new space is 4,586 square feet. How many square feet are you operating in now, including the second floor?
Jesse, do you know that offhand? I do not.
I think it's around 3,800 square feet.
Okay, so so this would be an increase in that area that you're going to be using. So I can't remember when it was, a year or two ago, we talked about parking because some of the businesses in the area were having issues with the early morning parking. So is this, I assume that the parking plan that you implemented with having applicants park across the street at the Caltrain station or wherever it was has been working. That would be the same case, I assume, that policy will carry over to this space?
We had worked with that tenant just due to the construction that was going up next door. The street parking was significantly impacted during the construction. Since then, the parking capacity has increased back to its pre-construction. So for us to put out sandwich board signs and not ask our members to not park directly in front of our business won't be our policy, just because the parking capacities have gone back to pre-construction.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Loftus?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the question about the lighting. Have you actually, well, I'll start with asking, is that an up-down fixture or a down fixture only? This wall sconce?
Down fixture only to control the lighting so they don't have light pollution.
Yeah, and have you done a lighting study at all? Do you know what the scallop looks like on the wall then? I mean, what are you trying to achieve is the question, I guess. And would you consider relocating those fixtures slightly just to address the comment by Jennifer Pfaff about the tiles?
Sure, what we're just, with the light fixtures, what we want to be able to do is to bring those down in between the glass, so we have them on the outside and so they're not shining in the glass. So, currently what we're proposing to do is to get them positioned so that they'll accentuate that column between the glass openings.
Yeah, great. That's sort of what I sketched as well. It seems like a pretty easy fix. And okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot one thing when I turned the page. So on the existing elevation, your drawing shows metal transom windows, but those are in fact wood, are they not?
Right now, there's a combination of things that are boarded up there. And I think there is some wood, and then I think there potentially is some metal framed as well too. So the current condition is in a pretty serious state of disrepair and a lot of boarded up space.
Because those looked, when I was there today, I mean, they look like they were all wood, but the ones that I was looking at didn't look that bad. But you're intending to go metal on the whole front of the building. I mean, I see the look that you're going after, so those would be removed.
Yep, just to have something that's a little more commercially sound and get the new energy glass on there as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then the perforated metal panels painted blue. Can you provide a sample of that? I'm not sure I know what that's going to look like, or somewhere where we could see it.
Yeah, we could get you guys a sample of that. Really, it's just that kind of expanded metal piece that's got the perforation to it, so you see it with some holes in that type of stuff, and it's meant to just fill that space and give a little bit of interest in there. But we can definitely supply a sample of that. Okay, and then the halo lighting surrounding it, is that like an LED strip light around the perimeter of it or something? Or? Yep, just to create a little bit of backlighting in behind the panel to create some interest, and then you'll see some of that lighting through the perforation. Yeah, because I was just kind of concerned because it doesn't seem like it's that deep. So yeah, if you could give us a detail or get us a sample on that, that'd be great. Yep. Thank you. And we can actually even face those LED strips down so they're not facing out is what the intent would be more. So as they face down, they would surround the perimeter and face, you know, up, down, and from the sides in there so they're not facing out against the metal,
Right.
but they're facing in towards one another to create a soft glow. And then the panel helps to hide some of that and create some interest. So we could provide that, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
You bet. Absolutely.
All right. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? I don't know if there's anyone in attendance left. Are there any?
Madam Chair,
chats
there
or-
are no additional emails. I'm not seeing any chats and no other raised hands.
All right then. With that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, comments? Commissioner Loftus?
Yeah, I think with the changes that have been discussed, this will be a good project, and you know, sort of reinvigorate that facade and that space. So I'm much in support of it.
Any other comments? Yes, Vice Chair Taronis.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Loftus, so I'll make a motion to bring this back on regular action, just so that we can see the revision, review the revisions, and take a look at the samples that have been requested.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Taronis, and I believe that was seconded by Commissioner Loftus. Okay, thank you. And is there any discussion on the motion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Camerata,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Loftus,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Vice Chair Taronis,
Aye.
Chair Say.
Aye. So the motion passes 6-0-0-1. This action is not appealable. So we will move on to agenda item number 10, Commissioners' Reports. I believe there are no Commissioners' Reports this evening. So we will move on to agenda item number 11, Directors' Reports.
Right, so this evening before you, we have two FYIs. The first being at 1906 Easton Drive and the second being at 1457 Bernal Avenue. Just a reminder, since this is not an agendized item, there's no notice for this item, there's no discussion, but please do let us know if you'd like to pull any of these off for future discussion at a future agenda. And if you want to just maybe summarize what the concern might be, just so the applicant is aware.
All right, Vice Chair Taronis.
I'd like to pull 1906 Easton Drive for a public hearing. My reason being, I think we need to discuss and vet the height interpretation. I would like to see if we could get a summary of what required landscaping per the original approval has been installed. Viewing the project from across the street, those mechanical units are very visible, so I think we need to vet that. And as an aside, as pointed out by the neighbor, the existing muntins that have been installed as stick-on muntins on those front windows are in fact peeling off. Thank you.
Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, I would also like to pull 1457 Bernal. At the last meeting, I was under the impression, and reading back in the minutes, that the right side elevation was going to be built as per the originally approved plans. So I was very surprised to see this come back as an FYI, asking for additional changes.
All right, so
Okay,
we've
great.
requested pulling both items 11A and 11B, please.
Got it, will do, thank you.
Is there anything to report on the City Council meeting on the 16th?
I believe the only planning item was the cannabis delivery. That ordinance was approved, and the resolution also passed, which I believe, Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it limited it to a total of four business locations at this time.
Yeah,
That
so
can be reopened up later.
Yep, the city council limited the amount of the non-storefront retail warehouse type properties to 4 for the city, but that can be amended by resolution. So they also asked that staff come back if we get close to that number. And there was on consent, the development agreement passed as well, but the initial public hearing on that was certainly the one where the more action happened. This is just on consent.
Right. Also want to note that there are 3 planning commission seats coming up in April. So the first 2 being Commissioner Camarado and Commissioner Schmid, who kind of took over the remaining few months of Commissioner Kelly's term. I'm assuming both of you will be reapplying. And then we recently found out from Commissioner Sargent that he has chosen to step down from the commission, so he will not be serving his last year on the commission. So there will be 3 seats open in the next couple of months here.
And what is that deadline for applications, Ruben?
I believe, let me check. I think it's coming up. So let me see here.
It's the 25th.
25th. I think you're right. Yeah, that's end of the week.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's all I had. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone. With that, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:46 p.m.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.